The entire landscape of professional football is on the verge of a massive defensive revolution, and the decisions made in this upcoming draft will literally make or break franchises for the next decade. We are staring down the barrel of insane, positionless chess pieces changing the game, while highly touted blue-chip superstars are dangerously plummeting down the draft boards due to shocking off-field controversies. The stakes have absolutely never been higher, and the tension is reaching a terrifying boiling point. Before we unpack all of this unbelievable draft madness, make sure you smash that like button, share this video with your fellow diehard football junkies, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a single moment of the action. Are we witnessing the absolute death of traditional football positions as we know them? Seriously, sit back and think about the sheer speed and complexity of modern offenses, and then look at how top-tier defensive coordinators are being forced to respond. There is an enormous wave of interest sweeping through front offices right now regarding these highly explosive, incredibly versatile safety-nickel hybrid prospects. We are talking specifically about dynamic game-changers like Traden, Stokes, and Keionte Scott. Scott actually just wrapped up a highly coveted top 30 visit, and the whispers around the league suggest the interest in Stokes is equally feverish. Now, we have to acknowledge the reality that both of these guys are older, highly experienced, 6-year college prospects. Stokes is going to be 25, and Scott is 24. But my goodness, when you turn on the actual game tape, the age factor completely melts away. These two are absolute premier athletes who move with a level of violence and fluidity that is genuinely rare. Let's look at Keionte Scott for a second. This kid has a jaw-dropping 44-inch vertical leap and runs the 40-yard dash in the low 4.3s. He is a little bit on the smaller side, measuring somewhere between 5'10 and 5'11 and weighing in just under 200 pounds, but he hits like an absolute freight train. Traden Stokes, on the other hand, brings a much larger, noticeably longer frame to the secondary, and he also tested completely out of this world during the pre-draft process. What makes this specific situation so incredibly fascinating is their fearless willingness to get their hands dirty against the run. Both of these phenomenal athletes played just under 200 snaps inside the box last season, while primarily operating out of the nickel spot. They were taking on massive, bruising tight ends and roaming the field with pure, unadulterated aggression. This is the exact blueprint for that positionless, fast-paced, basketball style of secondary play that highly innovative defensive minds like Mike McDonald are aggressively championing across the league right now. Look at how Kobe Bryant seamlessly transitioned from playing outside corner to becoming a hard-hitting safety, or how a brilliant defensive guru like Dennis Allen constantly manipulates his defensive backs to create absolute pre-snap chaos. If you inject a dynamic chess piece like Keionte Scott or Traden Stokes into a secondary that already features an unbelievable talent like Kyler Gordon, who himself showed incredible versatility transitioning from a college boundary corner to one of the league's absolute best nickels, the tactical possibilities are just mind-blowing. All of these guys become entirely interchangeable. It wouldn't even matter who is officially penciled in at safety or nickel on the pregame depth chart. The defensive coordinator could simply mix, match, and blitz them from anywhere on the field, just like we've seen with intensely physical players like Jaquan Brisker, except Scott and Stokes offer significantly better natural coverage skills and space. Scott actually racked up 5 brutal sacks last year as a highly instinctive, explosive playmaker who can absolutely terrorize the quarterback from the slot. Moving directly into the heart of the defense, let's talk about a player who is heavily polarizing the draft community but possesses undeniable, electrifying first-round talent. Jacob Rodriguez. He might just end up being the ultimate best player available steal of this entire draft cycle. Even if the linebacker position isn't viewed as the most glaring, desperate need after a highly active free agency period, drafting a transcendent player like Rodriguez could create an athletic nightmare for opposing offensive coordinators. This kid is a heat-seeking missile. He is perpetually flying around the football, and his athletic testing numbers at the combine blew everyone's preconceived expectations completely out of the water. Imagine pairing his relentless sideline-to-sideline speed alongside versatile, established guys like DeMarco Jackson. That instantly creates a blisteringly fast, turnover-producing machine of a defensive unit. Do not forget, Rodriguez was a total turnover magnet during his time at Texas Tech. He was always finding ways to punch the ball out, and just like Devin Bush grabbing 3 interceptions last year, Rodriguez knows exactly how to jump into throwing lanes and make quarterbacks pay dearly. Adding a guy like that perfectly aligns with the modern philosophy of getting faster, more aggressive, and vastly more athletic on the defensive side of the ball. This brings us perfectly to our question of the day, and I need you to hit the comments right now and let your voice be heard on this controversial topic. Would you be totally okay with shifting a dynamic playmaker like Kyler Gordon permanently to the safety position if it meant getting one of these elite, hybrid rookies onto the field? Or do you strongly believe he needs to stay locked in at nickel? Drop a loud yes or a firm no in the comments section below and tell me exactly why you feel that way. Now, let's pivot to the absolute mayhem happening in the trenches. The burning thought keeping every fan awake at night is whether or not a premier edge rusher gets scooped up in the later waves of free agency once the draft officially concludes. Honestly, this entirely hinges on how the first 2 rounds actually shake out. If the first and second rounds pass by without a premium edge rusher being taken off the board, the chances of signing a veteran stopgap skyrocket exponentially. But if a highly touted edge prospect is drafted within the top 60 picks, it becomes incredibly unlikely. When you factor in the returning developmental talent like Shamar Turner alongside established, game-wrecking starters such as Montez Sweat and Austin Booker, adding a highly drafted rookie makes it a very crowded and intensely competitive defensive line room. Bringing in a massive, high-priced veteran at that point would require figuring out incredibly complex financial logistics and honestly deciding if there are even enough snaps to keep a veteran ego satisfied. And while we are talking about the defensive line, we absolutely have to address the wild, internet-breaking rumors regarding blockbuster trades for generational superstars like Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. In this wildly unpredictable league, you never say never, but we probably shouldn't be holding our collective breath waiting for a massive miracle. If anything, a monstrous interior presence like Dexter Lawrence might actually be the more realistic domino to fall if his contract negotiations continue to stall out with the New York Giants. While those specific scenarios remain massive long shots, the intensity of front office trade talks always ramps up to a total fever pitch as we close in on draft day, so you never truly know what kind of blockbuster deal could suddenly materialize out of thin air. Let's look back at the actual draft board itself, because the drama is about to be completely off the charts. Every single year, without fail, there is that one unfortunate prospect who shockingly plummets 20 spots past their projected value. A few weeks ago, guys like C.J. Allen were viewed as absolute, no doubt first-round locks by almost every single analyst out there. Now, it feels like he could terrifyingly slide all the way into the middle of the second round. He is a brilliant, highly cerebral linebacker who diagnoses plays beautifully, but in today's hyperspeed NFL, you simply have to be able to cover massive amounts of ground, and scouts are starting to realize he is merely average in that specific physical department. Then you have a wildly intriguing day 2 target like Mike Washington Jr. If you sit down and actually watch his Arkansas game tape instead of just mindlessly staring at a stat sheet, his sheer, unadulterated explosiveness jumps right off the screen. When this big, 227-pound running back hits the hole, his raw acceleration is absolutely terrifying for second-level defenders. No, I am definitely not saying he is the next Derrick Henry. That would be completely hyperbolic. But he has those rare, eye-popping moments where he hits a home run and leaves you completely speechless. He certainly needs to clean up his frustrating fumbling issues and significantly refine his pass protection on critical third downs. But he is a surprisingly skilled pass catcher who ran devastating wheel routes out of the backfield in college. If we're talking about incredibly deep, late-round sleepers, keep a very close eye on Landon Robinson, the relentless defensive tackle out of Navy. Getting a high-motor trench warrior like that on day 3 would be a massive, under-the-radar victory. Finally, we have to fiercely debate who in this entire class has true, generational blue-chip potential. This draft feels incredibly heavy on solid, reliable, red-chip talent, but there are a few absolute stars waiting to take the league by storm. Arvell Reese has every single physical tool you could ever possibly ask for in a modern defender. Fernando Mendoza has a legitimate, very realistic path to becoming a top 10 franchise quarterback in this league, and at that premium position, that instantly elevates you to undisputed blue-chip status. Caleb Downs is another massive name that jumps off the page with a floor that is so incredibly high he will likely be a phenomenal staple in this league for years. If Jamed McCoy fully bounces back from his devastating ACL tear, his ceiling as a lockdown, island cornerback is astronomical. On the offensive line, Spencer Fano's rare ability to play all 5 spots makes him insanely valuable, while Caden Proctor possesses terrifying raw power, provided he keeps his conditioning strictly in check. But we have to pause and seriously talk about the massive, inescapable elephant in the room regarding Ruben Bain. The situation surrounding him is deeply concerning and perfectly explains why a top 5 talent on game tape might violently slide down the board. Investigative reports recently revealed his involvement as a driver in a tragic accident. While his initial careless driving charge was eventually dropped without a sobriety test being administered at the scene, he staggeringly received another careless driving charge the very next year. Regardless of fault in the first heartbreaking incident, picking up a second charge is a glaring, massive yellow flag regarding maturity and decision-making off the field. General managers are meticulously dissecting every detail of that right now, desperately trying to determine if the immense talent is actually worth the potentially franchise-altering risk. The anticipation is absolutely killing me, and with the draft clock ticking down, the entire landscape of the league is shifting by the minute. Stay locked in, keep your eyes wide open, and prepare for pure absolute chaos.